Good evening and welcome. In a world grappling with escalating tensions and complex geopolitical shifts, the United Nations General Assembly remains a crucial, albeit often contentious, stage for global diplomacy. This past weekend, the spotlight fell sharply on Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov, whose address delivered a potent mix of defiance, warnings, and nuanced overtures. His speech, coming amidst a backdrop of ongoing conflict in Ukraine, renewed concerns over NATO expansion and deepening crises in the Middle East, offered Moscow's perspective on a rapidly changing international order. Today, we delve into the core messages from Lavrov's address, examining his pronouncements on Russia's intentions towards Europe, his pointed criticisms regarding the Israel-Hamas conflict, and his stance on the contentious Iran sanctions. What do these statements reveal about Russia's strategic thinking, and how might they shape the future of global relations? Lavrov's most striking declaration centered on Russia's relationship with its European neighbors and the NATO alliance. He unequivocally stated that Russia harbors no intention of attacking EU or NATO member states. This assertion comes at a time when anxieties are particularly high, fueled by ongoing military actions in Ukraine and recent incidents involving alleged Russian airspace violations over countries like Denmark and Estonia. However, this assurance was immediately coupled with a stern warning. Any aggression directed towards Moscow would be met with a decisive response. Lavrov emphasized that there should be no doubt about this among those in NATO and the EU who, he suggested, are telling their constituents that war with Russia is inevitable. This rhetoric underscores a core tenet of Russian foreign policy, a firm defense of its perceived security interests and a readiness to retaliate against what it deems as threats. He also took aim at what he termed militaristic rhetoric emanating from certain European capitals, specifically mentioning German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Lavrov expressed alarm at discussions among EU and NATO politicians that a Third World War is a likely scenario. Such statements, from Moscow's perspective, contribute to an atmosphere of confrontation rather than de-escalation. The Russian foreign minister also dismissed the recent airspace incursions, which NATO attributes to Russia, as mere provocations, denying any Russian responsibility. This narrative divergence highlights the deep mistrust and differing interpretations of events that characterize current East-West relations. Shifting focus to the volatile Middle East, Lavrov addressed the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas with a nuanced yet critical tone, while unequivocally condemning the October 7, 2023, Hamas attacks on Israel. He swiftly pivoted to a strong critique of Israel's subsequent actions. Lavrov declared that there was no justification for the brutal killings of Palestinians in Gaza, and he criticized Israel's aggression towards other Middle Eastern countries. This stance aligns with Russia's historical position of supporting Palestinian statehood and advocating for a two-state solution. He further expressed concern that the actions in Gaza and the West Bank were part of a larger attempt to undermine United Nations resolutions calling for the creation of a Palestinian state. Lavrov implied that some Western countries, by delaying their recognition of a Palestinian state, were hoping there would be no one and nothing left to recognize. This statement carries a subtle, yet potent, criticism of Western diplomatic efforts and their perceived inaction or complicity in the ongoing humanitarian crisis. Russia's position here attempts to position itself as a defender of international law and the rights of the Palestinian people, contrasting with what it portrays as a biased Western approach. This narrative serves to bolster Russia's influence in the region and appeal to nations that share similar sentiments regarding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Lavrov also weighed in on the contentious issue of Iran sanctions, accusing Western powers of sabotaging diplomatic efforts and labeling the reimposition of UN sanctions as illegal. He specifically referred to the snapback mechanism for sanctions against Iran as a trap. This criticism highlights Russia's opposition to unilateral sanctions and its preference for multilateral approaches, particularly when they align with its own strategic interests in the region. Interestingly, despite his sharp criticisms of Western policies, Lavrov adopted a more conciliatory tone when discussing U.S.-Russia relations. He noted a desire from the current U.S. administration, under President Donald Trump, for pragmatic cooperation without adopting an ideological stance. Lavrov expressed some hopes for continued dialogue, emphasizing the importance of preventing confrontation, especially a hot confrontation, when US and Russian interests diverge. This willingness to engage, even amidst significant disagreements, suggests a strategic calculation by Moscow to maintain channels of communication with Washington. It also reflects a recognition of Trump's shifting stance on the Ukraine war, where the US president recently suggested Kyiv could win all of Ukraine back in its original form. This departure from previous calls for Ukrainian concessions may be seen by Russia as an opening for renewed diplomatic engagement. Sergey Lavrov's address at the UN General Assembly was a carefully crafted message designed to project Russian strength, defend its actions, and critique its adversaries, all while leaving the door open for selective engagement. His pronouncements on not attacking Europe, coupled with warnings of a decisive response, underscore a strategy of deterrence and self-preservation. His strong condemnation of Israel's actions in Gaza, alongside his criticism of Western policies, aims to solidify Russia's position as a voice for the global South and a counterweight to Western influence. The nuanced approach to US-Russia relations, particularly in light of President Trump's evolving rhetoric on Ukraine, suggests that Moscow is keenly observing and adapting to shifts in the international landscape. While the path forward remains fraught with challenges, Lavrov's speech provides valuable insight into Russia's current strategic priorities and its vision for a multipolar world. As global events continue to unfold, the words spoken on the UN stage will undoubtedly reverberate, shaping diplomatic discourse and influencing the trajectory of international relations for months and years to come. That's it for today. Thank you for watching.